Welcome back to another reading and correcting of Stepping with me, Kendar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. Today we are doing chapter 42. Didn't any of that even impress you? Trina asked Kumdar as they entered the room. Thinking back on the walk from the dungeon, Tibs realized that she'd been fighting the urge to ask questions, and the cleric had been his usual stoic self. Kumdar sat on his bed and leaned against the wall before answering. I realized, I have realized. Kumdar, quote unquote, overspeaks. I have realized I have realized early on knowing Tibs that if I allowed myself to be impressed each time he did something new, I would stop. It seems more productive to simply accept that such thing will happen for as long as I am friends with him. Jekyll chuckled, dropping on his. I think I need to save on his bed. Can you teach the rest of us how to do that? As asked, pressing his bow down before saying, "What happened?" He looked at the other. Who is this Stowe, and who's that other person you mentioned, Tibs? Ganny, Serena said, and stopped, looking at the cleric as if his calm was a direct affront or acceptance. Ganymede, Tibs said, sitting on the edge of his bed, so much for keeping that secret. But he'd been angry, and he couldn't expect his friends to just ignore what he'd said. That's her full name. Stowe's the dungeon. It's short for Stone Mountain Crevice. Well, that's a mouthful, Jekyll said with another chuckle. You are joking, right? Miss asked. That isn't a name, it's more of a description. He shrugged. This is the name he picked. He leaned back against the wall. And he got the sense he isn't much older than we are. At least the way dungeons measure it. He thought the name was interesting. Felt back on that long ago conversation. More him. So, carrying on there are 2 dungeons there? No, just one, he replied. She's there to help. Like I said, I think he's young, and she was sent to help him. So he'd learned how to do dungeons things. But he's the dungeon. If he doesn't want to do what she advises him, there isn't anything she can do about it. When no one commented on that, he looked at his friends. Jekyll seemed to be asleep, but the other 3 stared at him. Even Condor looked like he was holding back questions. Sent by whom? Irina finally asked. He realized he'd let something slip that might have been best kept to himself. I don't know. Ganny often refers to some sort of them when she feels Stowe is abusing or breaking the rules. His brazers. Moon's bow. I think your staff is also part of that, but still denied it even when she wasn't around. He paused. What he's been doing since reopening? The robes? Cleric asked. Those he said were random, and I believe him. They're the same as every other sorcerer's robe we've found, and the colors have varied. They just happen to be black this time. All right, Jekyll said. This is all fun and interesting stuff, but does it mean anything for our runs? Don't you think this is more important than loot? I couldn't see the look on the fighter gave the archer, but he expected it with shock and disbelief, especially with the way Maz rolled his eyes. I wish I could speak to this Gannon. Kirina mused. She must know much about dungeons. A lot. Much would be Kandar. She must know a lot about dungeon. Maybe not as much as you're hoping. Still, she's... Focus, everyone, Michael said. Does knowing all this, that the dungeon has a name, has someone who helps him, change anything? Seems to me it's going to go back to normal now that Tibs gave him a talk to. I don't know if he's going to do that, he replied. Even if he tells me he will, I don't know how much I can trust him. Trust him. At least if Genny isn't there to confirm it. He can only keep her from joining our conversation, not affect what she'll say. He wasn't treating us the way he treated the other teams. He explained their confusion and their confused expression. That's why those maps the other teams made didn't make it sense when you were inside. They weren't going up. They weren't going up against the same dungeon. He paused, pointing over a hand over the bracer. I think I talked sense into him, but I can't force him to do anything. And since you told him to treat you like everyone else, less sourly, if it decides to go on killing, that now includes us. Because not the way I feel about, not the way it feels about our Tibs. I told him to stop treating me special. You saved it, Jekyll said. I'm the only person who can talk with it, Karina added. Well, we'll know what he decides by the time. Wait. We'll know what he decides by the time of my next run. You could go and ask, I said. He said you wish he'd been there to talk with it more. He shook his head. I don't want to feel like I'm influencing him. You are, Tibs. That you be there or not, Mor said. That is the nature of friendships. Nothing changed, Tibs said, instead of acknowledging the comment. I'll find a way not to go in. If you aren't going in, Jekyll said in a neutral tone, then neither are we. He tried to work out how the fighter felt about it. Not all of his need for loot was a knack, he thought. We can get a different rogue, I offered, only if Tibs dies, Kandar said. I will not be the one attempting to make that happen. Will you? We can get a different rogue. Wait a minute. Will you? Tibs looked at Jekyll instead. Don't look at me, the fighter said, noticing the look. You're the one who missed the loot, Tibs probed, then thought of something else. And the fighting. I'm not killing you, Jekyll replied in exasperation. Noticed the other looking at him. Abyss, do you all think I'm unreasonable or something? I do not believe that is something you think, Kandar said. When Jekyll stared at him, he continued. We know you will be unreasonable when it comes to fighting or obtaining loot. Obtaining your loot. Our loot, the fighter replied. I share. That is true, Kandar detected. Having settled this, all we can do is wait and hope the dungeon will come to its senses. The next day, Tibs already knew Stowe had made his decision. He didn't need to wait to hear what the runner had to say about the runs. Of the 6 runner teams who had gone in, only one was the teammate. I'm going to leave this to the reader / my editor because I don't know if I should specify that he's not including the nobles. At this point, to me, it feels like it's been done often enough. Of the 6 runner teams who had gone in, only one lost a teammate. There you are, Mr. Lightfoot, Ross said, approaching their table through the crowd. Another change Stowe had been quick to make was added the meat drops. And because the inn had already been the preferred eating place for the runners, it was the first one they had offered them to, and Professor Fodder had been happy to pay a copper apiece for them. Oh, that feels clunky. Another change Stowe had been quick to make was adding the meat drops. Oh, that's going to be a phrase. Because the inn had already been the preferred eating place of the runner, it was the first one they offered them to. And they had offered them to. Princess Father had been happy to pay a copper apiece for them. It's okay. Now I get what makes it clunky. It's the them. Because the inn had already been the preferred eating place for the runner, it was the first. They offered them process father first. And I've been happy to be a couple of these. Because the inn had already been the preferred eating place for the runners, they offered them to Korsav's father first, and he had been happy to pay a copper apiece. That looks better. As far as Tibs could make out, Stowe was dropping a lot more meat than he had copper. Then was dropping a lot more meat than he had copper. Still, this is feeling like that he is implying Korsav's father, or could imply Korsav's father. Still was dropping a lot more meat than he used to. Used 2 coppers. So the runners were winning from it. We'll see. Karina, Mez introduced his friends, who were enjoying their first meal with a dungeon meat with him. Meet Cross, she's the one who gave me the cylinder puzzle. Lent, the fighter corrected, extending her hand. Unless you aren't done with it, still? The tone had a hint of suspicion in it. She barely masked the relief when he handed it to her. She studied it carefully. You're that fighter who's been going around beating up the others, Ness said, and Karina frowned. Then she was studying Cross. What's the point of the metal on your armor? Doesn't look like it makes it, like it's there for protection. Makes it heavier. She detached her pouch from her belt and handed it back to Tibs. And it does help with parrying and blocking swords. She raised her forearm and showed the metal strip on the bracer. Then those on her glove. Those gives my punch more impact. I have some on my boots too. She smiled at him. You should give it a try. I'm an archer, Nez replied. I can't be slowed by all that. She's pretty quick, Tibs said, looking at the pieces of wood that fell out of the pouch. He looked at her. I don't fix broken whatever this is. It isn't broken, she replied, smiling. That's a different kind of puzzle. Instead of figuring out how to open it, you need to put it back together. It's a cube. Once you're done, Tibs took a piece from the pile and looked it over. It was the length of his palm, a little thinner than a finger, and had a square notch a third of the way. He laid it on the table and aligned the others next to it. They were all the same except for where the notch was, and one didn't have a notch at all. What's the point of something like that? Karina asked, a mix of curiosity and bafflement in her voice. He was surprised. Of his friends, he'd expected her to appreciate puzzles. Ross chuckled, keeps a finger busy and the mind sharp. But it doesn't do anything, she insisted. It's fun, Tib said. It'll be interesting figuring it out. You're going to study Cross again. So you think yourself a rogue and a fighter? Cross laughed. I leave the locks and traps to people who know them, like those who live through the dungeon. I'm just a caravan guard, and I need something to keep occupied in the months it takes to travel from one city to the other. These help with that, and it also causes the guards to think that because I play with those, this, she motioned to her armor, is just for show to think. Woof, that. And it causes to think, play with those, this is just for show. So they think they can win fights against me. Why didn't you leave with them then? Mez asked. I needed a break. There's going to be one here in a week or two. If I'm bored of this place, I'll leave with it. If not, the next one, and I still get to guard stuff, like the booths by the dungeon, so that Mr. Lightfingers or his friends don't liberate any items there. I wasn't going to, pulled his mouth at her chuckle. The other rogues aren't as considerate as you are, she said. Then there are the thieves. Those have been a nuisance, but it keeps me busy, since the guards don't seem interested in doing anything about them. There's been a lot of thieves. He tried to find out after his encounter in the noble's house, but while he heard about the increase in theft, he hadn't been able to figure out how many of them they were. Most of the rogues didn't care what other thieves did, and at least in 2 cases worked with those thieves. A lot more than I expected for a town like this, even if it wasn't a dungeon town. With the guild here, the guards are usually better at discouraging thieves. It probably didn't work for Sebastian's in those towns. He hated the kind of influence Jekyll's father had here, and that some of the runners didn't mind working with his people. Just tried to explain the problem they were causing, but they saw it as an alternative to the guild, and they'd already worked with other criminals before, so that was more comfortable. I wish they didn't bother the merchants. If they don't have items to sell, they don't get points to pay us when we bring them the loot we found in the dungeon. You notice Karen and Ned staring at him. What? Where in your street did you learn about the ebb and flow of goods? She asked. Here, he replied. Darren explained some of it, and I'd figured it out just by watching the shops and how the merchants acted when we brought stuff. Ross chuckled. You got this better than some of the merchants I've worked for. And not all runners care about the town the way you do. I said. For a lot of them, this is just a different kind of sell, he thought. For the latest group, more than us, we had a chance to make friends and form tighter bonds. They didn't get that. So it's easier for them to cause Harry trouble, especially if the guards aren't doing their job. Tibs noticed. He'd noticed the lack of closeness among those who survived now, and realized he'd forgotten how he was on those first runs, how he tried to keep everyone away. They were more successful because so many had died, and now it might be too late for them to change their ways, even if it still wasn't as deadly. I was going to have to find a way to change that. He needed every runner in the town towards protecting it, not work, not be against it. He needed every runner in the town to work toward protecting it. You know what? I don't think I need it. I don't think I need this. Tibs watched the men and women being escorted off the platform and kept his distances. He'd overheard the guild was bringing recruits in today, and he'd arrived early, but instead of a group of scared street people, it's not the first group. The group that appeared had been a mix of guards in silver. Oh, right. That is why I went that way. The first group to appear had been a mix of guards in silver and black armor and adventurers with Death's essence. They took positions around the platform, shields at the ready and hands on sword. Then this group had appeared, and the only ones not to step back were the guards and adventurers. I think the dungeon might have planted its sword in its foot, people said with awe. The people standing on the platform looked not scared or confused, but methodically looked around, not scared or confused, but carefully, methodically. He initially thought they looked older because of how mean their expressions were, but the more he watched, the more apparent it became they were older. Not one of them moved, but they were tensed, ready to take advantage of any opening. Those people aren't from the cells, Jekyll said. At best, the kings must have gone to the catacombs to get this batch. One of the guards in the silver gave instruction, and for a moment Tibs thought they would be fighting. A few of the guards started drawing their swords, but a woman at the front stepped down the steps, and the other followed, attentive to everything happening around them. You think it's because how many Stowe killed? It had been a few days, and Stowe had stopped killing anyone who entered. Everyone. That's stop this killing spree. It's been devouring the young Omegas like they were sweetmeats, Jekyll answered. Makes sense that even if the kings have criminals in their cells, the guild might ask for a tougher cut this time around. But I don't think they expected the meat to be quite this hard. Their stomach rumbled. Why are you comparing him to meat? If hungry, I guess. Pickle said, I missed breakfast this morning. It was definitely worth it. Crow did this to Crow and stopped him to stop him and attempt to silence his hunger. Why do we have to try this now that the inn at good meat again? This is not fair. Pickle patted his shoulder. You need to practice. So why not have it when it's all this delicious food is being why not have it? Okay, you need practice. So why not do it when all this delicious food is available now? It narrowed his eyes at the fighter. If you don't stop, I'm going to eat you. Sorry, that's something only Crow gets to do. He opened his mouth to ask what his friend meant and closed it. The grin on Jackal's face said he didn't want to hear the answer. But yeah, the fighter said something like them would have been months of work to arrange. My guess is that within days of the last group arriving, this was happening. We're going to have to be on our toes. If there's one batch that's going to try, just from the dungeon thinking it's going to set them free, it's them. We won't be able to do it. So, Party needed concentrated corruption and still has defenses against that. They're just amigos, though they can't be as tough as they look. Looks can be deceiving, Tibs. Pickle grins. Just look at you. You move to follow the group. Come on, I can't wait to hear what Knuckles has to tell this new batch. Pickle started to follow Jackal when he felt the essence coalesce on the platform. He looked in that direction to get a sense of who the new arrivals were, and froze when a new contingent of guards in silver and black armor appeared. Tip swallowed. Jackal? He called. There are more arriving. And this concludes chapter 42 of Stepping Up. If you are enjoying this, please subscribe. Leave a like. Yeah, first one of the day will be. If you're enjoying this, leave a like. If you want to know when the next one is going to be, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the first book and wherever I'm at on this book, you can do that for free on Royal Road. You can support me on my Patreon and read further ahead than Royal Road, as well as have access to basically everything I've written. And if you want to listen to me fumble my way through these live, I do that on Twitch every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. The rest of the week, I write. And yeah, the links are in the note. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.